Okay. I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, February 21st. We would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we would please have a few moments of silence. The recent passing of Josie Valdez, Jesse Lomeli, Richard Clams Saldana, Bobby Piacentini, and Cheryl Evans. Please be seated. And when you're ready, the roll call, please.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Shigley.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here. Are there any announcements or written communications?
Nothing at this time from the city manager.
I do have an announcement. This is a reminder for city council members, planning commissioners, city hall officers, contractors. It is time to file your annual statement of economic interest for Form 700. Forms are required to be submitted April 1st, 2023.
Okay. Department head reports.
Good evening. Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. Got 3 items for you tonight. We're prepping for weather, of course. So starting tonight, very windy over the nighttime here. We expect debris on the roadways and walkways around town, so be careful. And then rain will be off and on through Saturday, so we can expect Petaley Beach Road to be closed at times as we have wind and rain and we have debris falling on there. So we'll alert everybody through text message and also the web. The heaviest rain is supposed to be for Friday and Saturday, so that's when you could see some of the rock fall being potentially more. Pump out float, the pump out float has been launched and it is out there in the harbor on a temporary mooring right by the fuel dock. So if you want to see it, it's the float with the 2 white boxes on there, and those are the pumps that are actually on the float. And that's good. That's a good thing because the pumps used to be on the land side. Now that float could be moved anywhere in the harbor as long as we have the connection points, the same as our fuel float. So those are things that are good to think of when we have sea level rise, we have redundancy, that we have the ability to take something out of the water, move it around, and that we're always in good shape that way. So, and that right now we're working on finish up the landside improvements. You can see the trench along the wall there. We're working daily to complete that, and then once that's done, we'll hook it up and get it tested for the last time actually in place, and then it'll be ready for use. Whitley on salt water, you can see that Public Works has been up on Whitley, kind of like we're digging in out there, but we've excavated 5 different holes looking for that water leak. And so what's happening is that actually, it's on that hill, and we've excavated looking where we have our sounding equipment and think that we've got it, and we don't, and then all of a sudden it'll follow another utility line hundreds of feet, and so that's what's happening, and we're just chasing that. But today, this afternoon, Jeffrey reported he thinks that he's got it finally located, in about a 100-foot stretch up there, right at the curve there at the top of Whitley. So hopefully, considering whatever the weather is here, whether we're able to get out here the rest of the week or we would be able to take care of the next week, but we think that we'd be able to locate that with the next hole that we put in the road. So any questions for me?
So every time you shut off the water, and I appreciate those updates by the districts and that kind of thing, that's what you're doing, correct?
Yes.
And
yes.
do you think the people in those areas know about that?
That's what we're trying to train them to do.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. We're trying to put as much effort as we, it's a balance of effort versus putting door hangers on everything.
Right.
So if we can get people trained to look at those and they can get on the resources that we have, whether it be a text, a web, an email, you know, a Facebook, whatever it is, whatever way that we're connecting with you, that when you see that, that is your alert that that's really, that we're going to be doing something in that area.
Yeah, great.
Okay?
Any questions? Great, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Warren Starfin, Harbor Master. Since our last report, Tuesday, February 7th, Patrol moored 210 boats for a total of 1,328 nights. Patrol did 9 warnings or advisements of the municipal code, responded to 1 minor medical, did 21 public assist, and Patrol did 130 security patrols of the harbor facilities and the surrounding waters. A quick update on mole floats 5 and 5A. The mooring service disconnected the floats last week from their anchors over there at the mole, and we got them out of the water. That was Thursday. We removed them, and then Friday we got them towed down to Pebbly Beach and removed out at the boatyard. So the overhaul on those floats has begun. And then I can give you a weather update. The latest weather update I got regarding the storm coming in is that tonight west winds 15 to 25 with gusts to 30 in the afternoon, and then as the wind fills in, we're going to have 30 knots to 35 in the evening, becoming northwest 25 to 35 overnight with gusts to 50. So it's probably going to be hard to sleep tonight. Wednesday northwest winds 30 to 40 with local gusts to 50. The swells in the channel combined seas 15 to 18 feet. So there'll be not much happening out in the channel. Everybody's going to be staying put. The harbor department has prepped the harbor ahead of the storm. It's all out of the west and northwest, so we feel real confident about the direction. We have augmented the staff as necessary. Most of the boats in the harbor, especially the larger boats, have been doubled up on their moorings, chafing gear put in place. And, you know, but when we have the wind blow for a long time like this, it just kind of wears things down, and then after a while things start to break. So, but, you know, we've mitigated everything we can on this. So, any questions?
Anything about harbor cleanup?
Harbor cleanup, we haven't heard anything. I don't expect it to be impacted yet. I mean, they've come over and they've done their cleanup after we've had significant rain, and it's really never stopped them. So as long as the rain that comes over the weekend is out of the south or southwest, I don't expect them to want to cancel. But then again, I really haven't heard anything yet.
Okay. Also, we were speaking, I don't know, last time we had a bad storm about, you have some people in the harbor, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 living in the harbor, and with these bad seas and elderly or whatever, didn't have anywhere to go. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so we've contacted all of the vessels, and we've encouraged everybody to move or come into the harbor that's on anchor, which for the most part they have. When I was coming on my way down here, there was 1 vessel that was still trying to get their boat into the harbor. But yeah, as far as, so what we've advised is not to be on your boat. A lot of people go against what we advise. They're going to be aboard their boat anyways. Those people we've tried to move or have moved into the harbor. So as far as I know, there's only 1 individual who's refusing to move that's out at anchor. So.
And is that's a dangerous situation?
It is a dangerous situation. It always is, and we go through this every winter. So it's something we don't like, the position we don't like to be in. We don't like to send Baywatch out in the middle of the night to deal with these things. But that's what Baywatch does, and that's how we end up in this position every winter.
And what do you think the reason is? He can't afford to stay somewhere else, or he's trying to protect his boat, or what's the
I think
logic?
it's probably a housing issue. It's expensive, so it's too expensive. A lot of people can't afford to keep their boat running or keep it on a mooring, so they anchor out. And just because they're at anchor doesn't mean the boat runs.
Right.
So then it's who's going to tow it? Well, commercial services, they want to be paid. And so when it comes down to it, in the end, the harbor does a lot of work.
So that person perhaps would get off his boat, but then he would still leave it at anchor, and then there's a danger that it could break loose.
Well, and yeah, like we had a boat on a mooring, and my conversation with the gentleman is, come ashore, somebody will help you. And they're like, you know, they can't afford it, and apparently, I don't know if they've reached out to the church, I don't know who they've talked to, but
Right,
we
right.
really can't start to step into that. Like, I can't start making those phone calls, because
Right.
we already have a job to do.
I understand, and I know the churches right now aren't taking people in. So I don't know if there's something we could do to step in to maybe help, because tonight's going to be, and the next 2 nights are going to be the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be very bad for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, okay, I don't know if we're.
But we're about as safe as we can be.
I know you all are I understand.
No, I mean, even when I say safe, I mean, the boats at anchor, everybody we've dealt with, we've been talking to them for 2 days now. So
Okay.
we've done everything we can.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any
Thanks.
questions? Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Staff. Michael Allegria, Fire Chief. I forgot last report, last council code. They wrote in January of just about 200 citations. They've been sending out letters for nuisance abatement in properties, also working after hours, washing down when you weren't supposed to, so they've been doing some office work as well as the citations. As for myself, the fire department, fire hydrants, you'll see us out testing fire hydrants or operating the fire hydrants. They do tend to, we usually get calls that the fire hydrant's leaking next to my house. It's the salt water, it's corroded. We go back out, open it, try and close it. Sometimes it just goes until the salt crystallizes, and that's what stops it. The guys out there have been great. If there's hydrants that aren't working properly or the riser is rusted, we've replaced many in the last couple of months. So they've been keeping up on it pretty good when we ask them to change it out. We're also doing some hose testing and then just some general maintenance on our equipment. Last week I was in Santa Barbara at a fire prevention officers conference and got to speak directly to the state fire marshal. And so I'm working on a presentation for you guys at, I believe, the joint council planning commission meeting.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
I'll have more info on that.
Any questions of our chief? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City officials. Since we last had a council meeting, we had 31 calls for service, 52 observations made by the deputies out in the field. There were 3 arrests made, 1 for possession of controlled substance, 1 for domestic violence, and the final one for drunken public. For the first 2 weeks of the month, I was out of town at training. I went to the Maritime, Law Enforcement Maritime School, which is a fantastic training, and we're going to continue to send our personnel to this training to get more people trained to assist Orrin and everyone else out in the harbor. So it's going well. It's fantastic training. We have adjusted our sworn schedules for the storm. Traditionally, we have people come in on Wednesday and go home on Wednesday. But we've done some shifting to make sure that we have personnel here in anticipation of a large storm and the boats being shut down going over town. And one more thing, we are actually starting the renovations of the 2 casitas that the department uses. That's going to start the first week of March. We haven't got an exact date yet, but we do know that the department has got every single bit of material they need and personnel ready to go, so we're just waiting on an actual date. Any other questions? Or
Going 2-story?
I'm sorry?
2-story?
No. That would be fantastic. That's one thing that we would love to get more of, how it is.
I know.
As you all know, it's tough to get it here and expensive.
Yes. Any questions or comments to the captain? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Matt Baker, Finance Director. I don't have a whole lot to report other than in March I'll be presenting the audited financials. And then beginning in April, we'll start our budget discussions. The plan is, again, to have it spread out over multiple meetings. So likely the second meeting in April, both meetings in May, and both meetings in June will be all on budgets. Topics in particular, we'll provide you that info once we get a little closer to the dates. But other than that, unless there's questions for finance, that's what I have.
We good? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next Sunday will be our last day for our Soccer Sunday. I want to be able to give a couple of shout outs to FRN, who's come up and helped with our little kids soccer and teaching our little kids, and to Miguel Bonilla, who is also the high school coach, but he comes and he referees their girls' games up there and does a fantastic job. We're always looking for more volunteers to help out with our youth programs, such as coaches and for referees. With that, we have our youth basketball league that is starting up. We just had our evaluation day. We had over 100 kids who have signed up from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade. And the nice part is we've actually, for this one, we have a lot of parents who've stepped up to coach right away. So I've got all my coaching staff, but if you like to come and volunteer as a referee, I know the refereeing is a glorious job that people love and are respected for. So we promise we will make it as beautiful as it sounds. And then also, just to let you all know, our recreation coordinator, comes back starting tomorrow. So we'll be more in-house than we have been this last month and a half, where it's just been me in that department. So hopefully with her back now, we can start to open up more programs and start more programs now that we have a larger staff and administrative staff coming back. Any more questions?
Questions, comments? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Belle, you're late.
Okay, city manager report?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A few things for tonight. Just another reminder, we'll keep doing this until the program expires. The parking ticket amnesty program is in effect. We are taking applications, and they have been coming in. It's encouraging, but I do want to remind the public, please, if you owe $250 or more in parking tickets, go online, go on the city's website, fill out the application. You can either, one of two options, either get those reduced by half to 50% or 100% if you turn in a golf cart to the city that'll be then shipped off the island. So please get this done if you want to. We know you're out there. We've seen the numbers, so the ticket holders are out there. And come April, when the DMV is back on the island, you'll be able to get registered with the state. You'll be able to get registered with the city, which rolls into that it is vehicle registration season, going on now through April 4th. Hours at City Hall Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to noon, and then 1 till 4. If you pre-register, if you go online and pre-register, you don't have to fill out the paperwork here at City Hall. You just show up, you get your sticker, and you go. You're in and out. So pre-register online. Please go there. Please go to the city website and start using those functions. It'll make your life much easier. And then finally, just a reminder to council, Assembly Member Josh Lowenthal will be on the island March 10th. He is, him and his staff will be arriving approximately 11:10 down at the mole. They're on the 950 boat, so 11:10. Coming over, we will have a couple items we're going to take them on a tour of. The mole, Pebbly Beach Road, and then the landfill. We will be, and anybody from council is welcome to join us on that moving tour, but we will be back here at City Hall by 1 o'clock in council chambers, where hopefully all of council can join Mr. Lowenthal and his staff, and we can just have a round table and discuss whatever items you want here at City Hall. And then at 1:45, I think between 1:45 and 2 o'clock, he's transitioning into the interior and going to take a tour there. So he'll be here all day. But we do want to remind council of those dates, and we'll make sure we get an email out confirming that.
Are we feeding them, or what are we doing?
We're working on a lunch somewhere to be
Okay.
determined. Yeah, we'll let you know.
And how are we gonna drive them around?
We are lining up golf carts, and we'll see if, I don't know if the van will be an option or not, but we're waiting to hear how many. We know Eric O'Donnell will be here, and Assemblymember Lowenthal will have at least one member of his staff. We're waiting to hear how many.
Okay, but
Probably
I'll be
Garibaldi
here,
does.
so I can drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see. If we can get some 6-person carts, we'll try to get as many people together, but we'll get those details out to you.
Okay, great,
Thank you.
thank you.
That reminded me of something. Is the city gonna stay closed to the public on Fridays indefinitely, or are you planning on opening back up to the public? I just had someone ask me that.
It's something we've just discussed internally a number of times. We're fully staffed here on Fridays, and we get a lot of work done
Right.
on those days, to be honest with you.
Right.
So we don't have plans. I mean, it is something I look at pretty much on a monthly basis if we're going to do it. But if we're not meeting the needs of the residents, then it's something that we'll have to absolutely do. But right now, we're just getting so much work done inside City Hall that I'd like to keep that going.
Yeah.
Are they pretty much answering the phone, though? So
Yes.
So then if something, an Overtown person comes in and needs to do something that you're advising staff to accommodate as much as they can?
Absolutely. No, the phone, we're still fully functional here. The phones are open. We're answering and, scheduling meetings, but just making sure we let people in
Yes.
as needed.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks.
City Attorney, Scott?
Nothing tonight. I'll have more to discuss when we get to the agenda items.
Oh, yes, okay, thank you. Council member reports.
I got nothing.
I just have a little bit. Chief Alegria told me that he was going to the fire prevention thing, and he sent me a link for a roundtable discussion that they were doing. It was sponsored by the League of California Cities. So I joined that roundtable, and I did raise my hand and ask a question and said, okay, these fire things, this high fire does not pertain to us, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, and we're out in the middle of the ocean, and can we? So the lobbyists now are going to go to, and I'm sure that was all part of your 3 days. So the lobbyists are going to insurance commissioners and stuff, but I just figured I would get on there and get in their face and have another voice from Avalon.
Yeah.
And then after that, a couple people from other cities chimed in and said, I agree, absolutely, one size does not fit all. Our city falls in that category too. So hopefully we can get that moving and get that changed.
That's great, Mary.
Yeah, and another thing I've been talking to Dave about, and I haven't been able to completely flesh it out, but I would like to start some sort of a program where it's positive recognition of adults and youth for doing something good. So my idea is if we have positive peer pressure, especially amongst the kids, then perhaps, the rowdiness, the riding their bikes too fast or throwing trash around, hopefully some of that would subside. So I'm still working on getting that together. But in the meantime, I would actually like to recognize a community member. A friend of mine, Linda Sala, was out on a walk, and she noticed up by the zip line, there was somebody down on the other side foraging around, and she's like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm picking up trash. This place looks disgusting. So I hiked down amongst the cactus, and Matt Beach was picking up trash. So I would officially like to recognize Matt Beach as an exemplary community member, and thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, that's very
So
nice.
if we see somebody doing something cool, feel free to reach out to me, and I will recognize them.
Yeah, great.
If I'm allowed. That's it.
Just had, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
On that point, Edison had actually given us these $500 worth of gift certificates, Amazon gift cards, for Christmas, but they were 2 weeks late on it.
Oh,
So so I asked Edison, could we use it for something like that? And so the school has been doing that right now with kids, encouraging them to come to school. Also, if they see something good from the kids, they're handing out $15, $20 gift certificates to the kids. And so I want to be able to say, thank you, Edison, for allowing us to use those in that way, in giving out in positive reinforcement to our kids. So just
right on.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we have to reward them, we have to give them money to go to school, right?
Well, I wasn't in my
no,
thinking, I wasn't thinking
but-
monetarily. I was
Yeah.
I was thinking, just
Just
recognition
Yeah.
is always a cool thing. And if they can print out a little certificate, and they can go, look at me.
Exactly.
Bragging rights does a lot, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just had a couple of meetings regarding broadband and internet services, and then also met with Councilmember De La Rosa and David Hart on International Women's Day, which we're looking to do hopefully an assembly with the school this year on March 8th. And then we'll try to go bigger next year with inviting additional people from the community and hopefully some dignitaries too, elected dignitaries. But hoping that we can chat with you guys about being available for that date. And just waiting to hear back from the school on if that time will work for them. So it's March 8th, and we'll have a time to be determined.
Yesenia?
Nothing to report on my end right now. Thank you.
Oh, you already said nothing. I just wanted to make an announcement. You'll be seeing them people out at Vaughn's. St. Patrick's Day dinner, they're bringing it back. It'll be on the 17th, and it's $20 per ticket. There'll be 2 dinner times. They're also going to have, besides the corned beef, they're going to have chili verde. There'll be raffle prizes and a whole bunch of them, and a lot of the church members will also be selling the tickets. So look for March 17th on your calendar. And
At St. Catherine's.
Yes, at St. Catherine's, Alexandria. Okay, that's it, and we'll go into oral communications. This is an opportunity for members of the community to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes, and no action will be taken. And Selena is on the agenda, so she'll be the first presentation, but you said you had something?
I have received written correspondence via ask.com, and this is from Brandy Keith from South Coast AQMD. Hello, and thank you to the Avalon City Council and city staff. Online applications are now being accepted for South Coast Air Quality Management District's 2023 Governing Board Summer Internship Program. If you know a college or high school student who might be interested in this wonderful opportunity, please direct them to the following link for additional information so they may submit an online application. https://www.governmentjobs.com/careers/SCAQMD.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, thank you. All righty, and now we have a couple presentations. First one.
All right, well, since I'm an Edison employee, I have to leave the room.
We'll see you shortly. Or longly.
Hopefully shortly. Good evening, Mayor, Marshall, and members of the City Council. Selena Luna with Southern California Edison Local Public Affairs. Thank you for pulling the slide deck up. So I'm here tonight to provide the monthly Stage 1 update. If we could go to the next slide, please. So I'm pleased to report that the Stage 1 mandatory water conservation is no longer in effect. And SCE filed an advice letter to exit Stage 1 with an effective date of February 2nd of 2023. The January rain events and peak desal production helped the reservoir recharge from 42% in early January to 73% as of February 13th. We expect the reservoir recharge to continue in the coming weeks and months, especially since it looks like we have some rain predicted in the next couple days. So while water conservation is no longer required, we're still asking the community to conserve water voluntarily to help preserve our limited groundwater resource. If we could go to the next slide. So this is a photo of Middle Ranch on the left at 45% capacity from October of 2022. And then now we have a photo on the right of Middle Ranch Reservoir at 70% capacity in February of 2023. Next slide, please. So just next steps for us here with our water conservation. With stage 1 concluding in January of 2023, we have calculated an 8.5 acre foot in water conserved over the previous 5-month period. This also coincides with an average of 3.4%. The first link is an Energize story that we did that ran late last week that talks about mandatory water conservation exiting the mandatory water conservation and also encouraging folks to continue to conserve water. The other one is the dedicated web link, saveourwater.com, as well as sce.com/Catalina. As always, if you guys have any questions, you can email catalinawater@sce.com to recognize folks that are conserving water or to ask any water conservation questions in general. So our next milestones with our desal enhancement are moving to the State Lands Commission in April and ideally the California Coastal Commission in May of 2023. We are also working on a water availability study for Middle Ranch, Avalon, Toyon integrated system, which will occur in March of 2023. So we are working on a scope of advice letter for water availability to be released in April. That's all we have. We're grateful for the rain, and we'll be back next month to update you some more. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? No. Has nothing to do with Edison, but it has to do with the water being sold in the restaurants. That I don't know if as a citizen I can say, no, excuse me, we're out of phase 1, I would like a glass of water. Because I know someone said they went to one place, you want water? Yeah, they gave it was $9.50. So you don't know that they're selling you A1 water. Well, you don't really care, you may just want a little glass. I don't know, I guess I'm reaching out to the restaurants and those of you, if people ask for a glass of water, just give them a glass of water. And I understand they all did really well when we were conserving, and I appreciate that. But I don't see any reason why they can't just give us water.
And the other thing on that, I was talking with Dave about that, or Dave was telling me about that, is that by serving bottled water, that's plastic that's going into the landfills. Yeah. So we're out of first stage water rationing, and if somebody asked for a glass of water, you should be able to get a glass of water and not have to get a bottle of water. Yeah. So just putting it out there.
Thank you for that reminder.
To just putting it out there, can that be written into the code that they should be offering one or the other, not just bottled water?
Whose code would that be?
Ours.
Do we have a code that says that right now? I'm sorry.
Well, we don't, but the suggestion is that you do that.
Oh, right.
And I think that, from a business standpoint, I don't know if we can govern what they can and can't offer, but I think what's happened in the past is that some restaurants have used stage 1 as an excuse to say, we only have bottled water and you have to purchase it.
Right.
I think the idea of this is to notify the public that excuse is no longer necessarily valid. That's not a requirement. We're out of stage 1. And even if we were, I don't think it was mandated.
And I still think the suggestion would be that if you request water, that you just don't automatically get the water.
Right.
Because
Right.
that's what happened the last time, is when we did get out of it, they started just bringing it. But I think it should just be by request. But yeah, we're out of first stage, so they shouldn't be bringing you a bottle of water.
I'm just saying from the trash perspective,
Yeah.
we should be attacking that as a separate issue, that if it's not a requirement, you shouldn't be selling bottled water in your restaurant. That shouldn't be the first option.
Right, again, are we going to make a code, or are we
That's
going
what
to?
I'm asking, yeah.
I guess you can't, I think Dave said we can't dictate that. I don't think we can.
I think we just set that as guidance.
We can definitely create code that says you can't use single-use plastic.
That we can do, yeah, that I,
we can do,
yeah.
yeah. That kind of stuff. And then just that, okay, if that includes
Or that
funds?
the only time that you're able to do single-use plastic is during a certain phase of water
Water
rationing.
rationing. Yeah.
Scott, are you hearing that? Scott Campbell, he's on mute.
Is that something we
Yes.
could?
Got you with your mouth full. Is
I
that
know.
something we could do? You want Lisa to
the
repeat
question
it?
again.
Is it permissible to create code that would allow for no use of single-use plastic unless there is a requirement due to stage 1 water rationing or further, to allow for us
Yes.
to cut back on the amount of plastic waste?
I think the city of Malibu has that, and
Yeah.
we worked on that. There are several cities that ban single-use plastics.
If we can look at that, please, as an overall policy and bring that back to a future meeting, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
I hope you're enjoying your sandwich.
Thanks for working late.
All right. Thank you, City of Avalon.
Selena, thank you
Thanks
very
so
much.
Excuse me, Mayor, we did receive one more email from Jim Lucho-Han during the SCE presentation.
Sure,
Can
go
I
ahead.
read
Yeah.
that to you right now?
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, Bob. This is from Jim from Love Catalina. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm under the weather and opting to attend virtually tonight versus being there in person. As recently shared at a previous council meeting, our long-awaited new website has now launched and may be viewed and enjoyed at lovecatalina.com. As you know, from recent launching the new city website, no launch is free of bugs or issues. So we ask the public to let us know of any issues you experience when navigating the new site by emailing me at jim@lovecatalina.com. Last week, we held our quarterly marketing meeting and shared recent successes in upcoming marketing and PR efforts to drive visitation to the island. Interested members of the council and community who would like to see the presentation made at that meeting may do so by going to the Meetings and Agenda tab on lovecatalina.com and selecting the item labeled February 16, Meeting Committee Meeting Presentation. We have settled on a date for Catalina Pride 2023 of June 24th, 2023. While that date does not accommodate everybody in the community who share their preferences, it is a math for entertainment availability. It is not part of Father's Day weekend and does not compete with nearby Pride events. Council members, you are once again all invited to participate in the opening ceremony. A timeline will be shared shortly. Thank you for your time and attention. Jim Lucho-Han, President and CEO of Love Catalina Island.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Good evening again, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. I have a presentation on our Casino Way arch rehabilitation. So now the project's wrapped up, I wanted to share with the community the details of the work. So that being said, the starting scope of work was this list of items that I asked the contractor to provide to us. And so it was to protect the surrounding site, preparing for the capture of all the prep process. So imagine that we're out there and we're going to be removing stucco and we're going to have debris all over the sand, and so we've got to protect the public, and then we also got to protect the beach and the outside surrounding landscape. Then we erect a scaffold. We excavated down 12 inches around the building so we could get down to the bottom of the stucco and see what kind of shape the structure was in. We pressure washed the structure. We are thoroughly cleaning years of salt and debris from the structure. We prepped any rusted stucco wire as we got down into those levels. We added a bonding agent once that we were building back up, and that's to bond the new plaster and prep it for that. We replastered the walls where necessary, added an epoxy primer, then we added 2 coats of epoxy after that, and then regrout the tile where necessary because there was all kinds of missing grout, and clean up the site, and then re-stencil the Via Casino lettering. Okay, so that was the original scope. And then we started that work on November 28th and finished on January 13th. The initial work was estimated to be at 15 days, and it actually took 30 days. So you can see that it doubled in labor and doubled in materials, and that's just because of what we found. You'll see that from the photos. Okay, and so that scope doubled because of a few reasons. Inclement weather, so our response to that, we shrink wrap the whole building. And that's because you're going to be protecting people working in there from the inclement weather, but also that captures, further captures all of that resulting debris, but then it allows them to put heaters in there, so when we're putting those epoxy coatings, that it's able to dry, with the correct temperatures. And then the delamination of the plaster from the previous repairs. You'll see from the pictures that there was some fiberglass matting put in there, and they tried plastering over, and it was all delaminating. So when we start taking a high-powered pressure washer to that to clean that salt and debris off, basically the thing was just coming unraveled. But still, it was in pretty good shape, the structure inside itself, but it was the plaster that was delaminating. And then the ceramic wall tile was showing high rust penetration. So once we got in there and started digging into those grout joints, you could see rust. And what happens is that if you don't abate that rust, it's just going to come right back out, and then you're not going to see a nice, clean, shiny tile surface. So they got in there and they detailed all of that and cleaned out a lot of that grout, abated the rust, and then re-grouted it. And then the roof tile, once we got up there to the top to cover all that up, we found that we had 70 tiles cracked. So we have plenty of those tiles back in the yard, but the contractor went and replaced all those tiles and got it back in order. So now you really have a finished product that will last for years. So I can show you a quick show and tell here. Let's see, here we go. You can see where initially that you can see how bad a shape the stucco was, and that we're starting to apply ground cloth to protect the sand, and then we're putting the scaffold in further from this side. And you can see that we're digging down that 12 inches, and you can see that we've got the lamination happen at the bottom of the stucco there. Further. So you can see that it wasn't in very good shape on that ocean, that water side there.
Oh, look at the, dang.
Okay, now they're bringing out the shrink wrap, and they're getting ready to wrap the building. You see, now that we're cleaning all the way down to where we really have firm stucco. Here is where that fiberglass was put on. You can see it behind there, and now it's all delaminating. And you can see further, underneath the arch there, it's all delaminating. So now we've cleaned it, we put bonding agent, and we're starting to replaster it as we get further ahead.
Wow.
And these guys were artists with this plaster. I mean, I was so impressed at the quality they were doing. Anybody I could take in there, I was showing them.
Yeah.
And then this is to show that, they really detailed around the tile, make sure they weren't disturbing the tile. And then as it got too deep around the tile, they're building it back out.
Wow.
And then so a bonding agent. And you see some more plaster. You can imagine how tiring that gets, slinging that mud on there and doing that all day. And these are two access doors that we put in because you see that we put lights in the little niches there. So when at nighttime, 3 of them on one side and 2 on the other, that you see all that tile in those niches. And then further what we're going to do is we're going to put some in our landscaping. That's a further project so that we can splash some light in the landscaping and up the building, so we've prepared for that. Because it's, a historic structure that we want to see from the water, but also people, as they walk down the walkway, it draws them in and see some of the architectural details.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start seeing the primer go on, the epoxy primer. And then they're also, then this is where they're putting the Via Casino stencil on. And you can see there's definitely some artistry here on how they layered the red and then the black and to give it some definition. And you can see it then after they do that, you can see how they're taking the tape off there for the exact detail. And that's Matt Sullivan. And so he's the owner of MKS. And you can see that he's the artist that's doing the stenciling there. And he's truly an artist. He's not just a structure painter. He's an artist in many ways. And really, like on this project, he was just so complete in seeing all of the details. That's why we really wanted for this project, because that's what he did up at the Chimes Tower. Did the same kind of work. So then you can see where we're regrouting. And this is the detail where we had to hit all those grout joints. So you can imagine that was days and days, kind of, it's like dental work. It's going to your dentist and digging all that out. So we could get, so you can see where it's cleaned out there. And then here's the roof tile, not in good shape.
Wow.
And so then they're working to get those back in order. Okay, so you can see.
Amazing.
Okay, so that's what we have, and I have a sample here, and so it shows what the original was, and then when they put the glue on, the Weldcrete bonding agent, then the Rapid Set mortar, and then Rapid Set grout on top of that, and then epoxy moisture barrier, 3 coats of epoxy, and then 3 coats of poly, which is that very hard surface to protect against the salt. So like this is like premium Rolls-Royce type, but that structure deserved it. So I'm going to pass that around so you can see it.
That's amazing.
But I would like to thank MKS for their great work in preserving, this historic structure for our community.
Yeah.
But any questions on any of that? Okay.
No, thank you.
Job
Good.
well done. That's
Yeah.
awesome. It looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the lights.
Mm-hmm.
Stay safe.
Bye, Selena. Well, it was well worth the wait, for all the time.
It's gorgeous.
It
It's
couldn't
just-
be done, I'm sure, any better. It's- Wow. Okay. Now we're going to the consent calendar.
I just want to say thanks, Bob, for that presentation.
Yes.
And really, everything he said was accurate, but it is a long way of saying we will probably have a change. We're going to have a change order on this because of the amount of time.
Yeah.
So this was all the work to show, that change order is coming, Council.
Right.
Okay, so for the consent calendar, first off, we have approval of the minutes from January 17th, 2023 regular city council meeting. Approval of warrants total expenditures for January 30th, 2023 through February 10th, 2023 totaling $733,452.90. Asking council to authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement with the Catalina Island Mortuary. This is really a renewal of the expired lease agreement. Authorize the city, number 4, authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Transportation Concepts for a 1-year extension of the existing contract terms. Item 5, authorize the city manager or their designee to procure for the city's purchasing policy a new skid steer with several attachments that meet the required specifications outlined by staff for a total not to exceed $126,500 and amend the budget to increase the vehicle replacement account by $126,500, account 13825-6781. That's everything on the consent calendar.
Is, any questions, first of all, or do you want to pull anything?
I don't know. Since I'm new to this, I don't know if we're supposed to pull stuff or what, but I kind of wanted to talk about the transportation concepts, just because I read
Yeah,
through the.
we can pull it.
We'll
Pull it?
that.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so there's the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Okay,
I'll second.
moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Item number 4. Questions?
Your question?
So my question was, we're authorizing this for 1 more year. And I guess a long time ago, staff was talking about, or council was talking about a new company, a new contract. So with just authorizing the city manager to extend it for 1 year, that doesn't, that just extends that? And we do have staff working on the
Right,
background?
we're planning on doing an RFP to send that out to see if anybody else. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so do we have any indication that it might come to fruition before their year extension comes up again?
Well, I can tell you that the process to go out for RFP and the timing of it is, to get the specifications out, approximately 3 months to put it out, have it out there for a period of time, say 60 days. It's a 6-month process to even get somebody, to get that out, to start getting RFPs back to evaluate them. We feel the year, it gives us enough time to give, if it's a new company, to give them time to be up and running and hit the island running when that happens.
Okay.
So that's why we want to give ourselves this full year to do it.
Okay,
If something happens, and you never know, if the RFP comes back and we end up going with a different company, whether they can start early, that's always something that can be negotiated at the time.
okay.
Well, and we're looking at, I think we're trying to look at some other kinds of options besides somebody who's going to do exactly what they do. So that's going to take us a little bit of time to just formulate that, I imagine.
Right. We want to explore all microtransit options, something that maybe fits better
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
So that's going to be part of the RFP process, is to have somebody that can manage that.
And then would that come to us?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I mean, and we might find that even someone like that, Transportation Concepts, would change their model as well.
Very well
Yeah.
could.
It doesn't kick them off the island, it just, gives us options.
Okay, all right. I just
But it
wanted-
gives us the time to discuss and formulate what we want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that those efforts were underway and attainable in a year.
Yeah.
So, and anything, if there's a committee or something, I'll be on it. So, there you go.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so is there a motion to authorize the city? I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a contract amendment with Transportation Concepts for a 1-year extension of the existing contract terms.
I'll second it.
Oh. Mary second.
Was that, okay.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Okay, item number 6, this is exciting.
Okay, item number 6, Cal Recycle CRV Redemption Pilot Program amendments. We're asking council authorize the city manager to submit an application and letter of interest to Cal Recycle to form a pilot project jurisdiction with SoCal Recycling in the city of Long Beach. I just want to let council know that we have been working on this. I want to thank both Devin Hart and Denise Ratty, who had been working on this. And we had meetings up until last week with the city, with the group in the Long Beach to get this going, and they just need these 2 items from us. The application, the letter of interest, so we can get our foot in the door and get that process going, and hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months, we'll see something here.
Oh, God, I'm so
This is a
excited.
really exciting opportunity, I think.
It really is, and about 20-some years overdue.
Right, but I just was curious, why a pop-up and not a permanent? Is it, we just don't have a space for a permanent?
We're actually talking about both, meaning that we think that a permanent facility might work, And when they talk about a permanent facility, when we went that route with them, they said, well, the one thing they can't man it, staff it every day. But what they could do and what they talked about is providing us with barcoded bags, where you'd put your recyclables in that barcoded bag, you'd take that with your phone, you'd have an app where you're already a part of the system, you take that barcode is recognized by your phone, those are your recyclables, and you put them into a permanent bin. They come over and pick them up and take them, and then that barcode is read once they get them back to the mainland and processed, and then your account is credited. So we could have a system where our original thought was that they would only be here 1 time or 2 times a month, and you'd have to hold on to your recyclables and take them up there at that time. With this system, you can bring them up and dump them in a bin, and then they just come and unload that bin.
Oh, that'd be cool. Okay, so they is Cal Recycle or the
Correct.
City of Long Beach?
Cal Recycle.
And why do we have to partner with the City of Long Beach?
Because you have to partner with the jurisdiction. We're not big enough on our own to have it,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're willing to partner with their program
Okay.
that they have funding for.
Okay.
For glass, plastic, and aluminum.
And what?
And aluminum.
Okay.
Because
So-
originally we were talking about having a recycled vehicle come over here and barged over, and the cost it wasn't going to work. It was not going to be cost effective. So then now they can do this with just a pop-up tent if they're going to take them over the same day, or if we have space and can work out a facility where the recyclables can be left, then we'll do that.
Okay. This is awesome.
It really
It's
is.
about dang
It
time.
really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And are we gonna ask the Avalon Freight Service if they could maybe ship that stuff back over for nothing?
That would be
Well,
nice.
We're working with them, and I know that Cal Recycle has reached out to them, and they're in communications with them
Okay.
about that. Yeah,
Good. Well, this
absolutely.
is so cool. Okay. So.
I will make the motion to authorize the city manager to submit an application and letter of interest to Cal Recycle to form a pilot project jurisdiction with Southern California Recycling and the city of Long Beach.
I'll second.
Moved to second. Any comments?
I haven't received no comments.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Item 7.
Okay, item 7, we have the Avalon Mode Shift feasibility study. Bob Greenlaw is here, and we have our consultants online that will make this presentation.
Good evening again. This next item presents the final mode shift feasibility report. To present the report, our consultants to WTRAM is Barry Bergman and Steve Weinberger and Brian Hannigan of RRM, and they're on a Zoom hookup here so that they can present to us. The intent of the presentation is to review and receive the report and provide direction to staff on the implementation of the findings of the report.
Okay.
So, Barry?
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure to be here. We had last presented to the council a couple months back. We summarized the outreach process and kind of our preliminary recommendations. So at this point, we've compiled the draft report and just wanted to bring to you, we prioritized certain items, identified some actions that we are recommending that the city undertake in the near term, trying to get a sense of what can best achieve the goals laid out in the study. So let me go through my presentation. And then we'll have some time at the end for discussion and questions. So the feasibility study includes the analysis and the recommendations. We're also going to be pulling together some supplementary material, so that'll include the details of the survey results, as well as we put together some case studies of similar programs to what we're recommending that have been tried in other cities, so it might be a good reference point for the city or places to follow up to get some additional information, as well as some information about some potential funding sources. There is some of that kind of material in other reports that were done, such as the active transportation plan, but since the scope of this is broader, we wanted to expand that as well. So There we go. So this just to back up a little bit, the mode shift study was done to really follow up on some things that were previously recommended in the city's general plan, as well as the active transportation plan that was done a couple of years ago. So since those had already been through a public process and vetted, we took the recommendations from there and rolled those forward into what we did, and then added some new things and tried to kind of take a comprehensive look at what would be achieving the goals for this project. And just to kind of restate what those goals were, while the title of it is the Mode Shift Feasibility Study, and that was certainly one of the primary things we looked at, there were some also related goals that were part of this process. So yes, reduce gas-powered vehicle travel, encourage walking and biking, improve public transportation options, micromobility options, and then related to that, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and also improve the use of the limited public space that's available. So I'll get into talking about that a little bit more. We did just mention the process a little bit. When we did our survey, so we got a lot of input from the public. We collected over 600 surveys. About 140 of them were from full-time Avalon residents, and the rest were from either visitors or day trippers, or so we felt like we got a pretty good representation of the different kinds of issues that people are going to be dealing with. We broke those out separately when we analyzed the information. And we also had several meetings with stakeholder groups representing key organizations and businesses on the island. So obviously, one of the real critical issues here is dealing with the needs of residents and visitors. And in some cases, those overlap. In some cases, they're different. But it was really interesting to look at the survey results and just to see where those things where those things were shared and where some distinctly different recommendations were needed to meet the needs of both groups. So this is kind of a summary of the key issues that we pulled out of, through talking with the stakeholders, through the surveys, through observations, through talking with staff. Certainly the major thing that enables this to even be possible is just what Avalon is physically like. It's a small, compact, largely walkable area. There is limited space designated for pedestrians and bicyclists, so the sidewalks are pretty narrow. And given, particularly down by the waterfront, the volume of pedestrians, there really is just not an adequate amount of space to really promote that further. So the public right-of-way tends to be dominated by on-street parking. Most of the residents who have vehicles do not have off-street parking, so that's what happens with that, and with the narrow sidewalks, that means that there's less space for pedestrians. The hills are a mobility challenge for some people, so for them, walking may just not be an option, and vehicle transportation may be necessary. We're not talking about eliminating vehicles, it's just a matter of reducing them and emphasizing other options. Most visitors are unfamiliar with local transportation options. A pretty high percentage of visitors are day trippers. They, in many cases, are people who've never been to Avalon before, may never be in Avalon again. So how to communicate to them what their options are, what they actually need in order to get around. They may not be aware of just how walkable and easy to get around Avalon is. Residents and visitors have different needs to some degree, and the local transportation patterns are unique but predictable. Most other communities, certainly that we work in, we tend to focus on the morning commute, the evening commute, and Avalon's just a completely different animal. So a lot of it is tied to the ferries, and so we just get a very different pattern throughout the day, but it is predictable because things operate on a schedule. So that's something that can be worked with. Some of the obstacles to change, so vehicles are clearly important. This is particularly something that was cited by residents, is that used for transporting packages, groceries, things like that. For luggage, it's certainly an issue for people who are visiting and staying overnight. Golf carts are part of the local culture. They're certainly very practical for many people, for residents, but it's also something that you can clearly see in advertisements, people who have rental units and it comes with a golf cart, and it's just something part of part of the unique Avalon experience and something that, that's a selling point. There are financial incentives for people to continue to use or own vehicles. I know when the previous time we presented, the council met to discuss the revising the fee structure. The fees are quite low on vehicles, and so there may be ways to incentivize or disincentivize certain types of vehicles. And also the need for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The fact that most people do not have off-street parking, it makes it more challenging. They won't be able to just install vehicle chargers in their home. So there are ways to do that in the public right of way for those who don't have the ability to do it on their own property. So just to go through the kind of the priority recommendations, we have some that we've indicated are kind of longer term or maybe involve some additional work, and we kind of put those at the end. But we think that there's a lot of things that are achievable in the short term and that can really yield some significant impact. So kind of the main way we were looking at this was if we want to decrease the rate of driving, to reduce the incentives to drive. So part of that is to make other modes more competitive or convenient, and to maybe making driving less convenient. Increase the cost of owning the vehicle, such as with the fees, and then making parking less available, less convenient, or more expensive. Improving the existing non-vehicle mobility options, so that walking, biking, taking transit, planning for and introducing new mobility options, things not currently available. And then we also wanted to keep in mind equitable access. And as the city had studied a few years back, there are quite a sizable number of lower income people in Avalon, and we want to make sure that whatever options are available are accessible to all residents, and perhaps that's some kind of a pricing plan. So the near-term priority items that we've identified here, I'm just going to run down this list and we'll show some examples and talk in a little bit more detail. One is to provide some visitor information, again, because a lot of people just are not familiar with the island conditions. Vehicle electrification, updating the vehicle policies and fees, redesigning streets, safe routes to school, luggage transport, and then micro-mobility options. So for visitor information, this is really two different things. One is approaching people prior to their arrival in Avalon. So since everyone is arriving pretty much by ferry, the ferry terminals on the ferry, at the mole, these are ideal places to intercept people before they actually arrive and to orient them. So that can be done through development of mobile device apps, through printed material. There's lots of ways, and this is a pretty straightforward thing to implement, something that would require coordination. There's a lot of people who would be interested in having input and designing the materials and also how they're distributed. Once people are in the city, then wayfinding signage. So I've just got a couple of examples here. And we're talking pedestrian scale, so these are examples. The one on the left is from Boston, the one on the right is from Napa, but just talking about things either major destinations or even specific businesses. And these are very customizable, and it very easily transmits how close people are to get to various destinations. Vehicle electrification. One of the things we've seen that might be worth looking into is, I know Los Angeles has done some of this. We know examples in London. There are other places where they've tied the electrical vehicle charging into street lights. So that's a potentially something that could be adapted for use in Avalon. So we'll have to figure out how to make sure there's no obstructions to the sidewalk, but also some kind of centralized vehicle charging in off-street parking lots or along the street. This example from the photo here shows the charger for an on-street parking space. There's also, for residents who currently own gas-powered vehicles, if we're talking about promoting electrification, then people may have recently bought a vehicle. They have vehicles that maybe have a lot of useful life left. So how to make something like that transition affordable or incentivize that. the state, regional agencies, there's a lot of programs that are coming out every year that provide these kind of incentives, both to purchase vehicles and also to purchase charging infrastructure. So that's something that either for individuals or for the city. To help push that along, establishing a date for when that would be, when gas-powered vehicles be phased out would be something that could be looked at. Obviously, that needs to be, there may be some vehicles that have to be gas-powered, whether they're going into the interior of the island or certain types of vehicles, but at least for general use, sort of minimize the number of gasoline-powered vehicles for air quality purposes and also just in line with the state's climate goals. Updating the vehicle policies, this supports what I was just talking about, and disincentivizing vehicles. For visitors, there are the cart rentals that people take on for a couple of hours at a time, but also a lot of units may come with a vehicle, and that's something where if that's something that is already bundled into the price of a vehicle, one way to disincentivize that is if it's separated from the cost of lodging, and if someone has to think twice before thinking, oh, I'd want to pay extra to get that vehicle, they may choose to rethink that and to walk to their destinations or try some other mode of transportation. Street redesign projects. This is something that was carried forward from the active transportation plan, from the general plan, but because there is such limited space for pedestrians, bicyclists on many streets, to think about expanding the existing pedestrian-free zones, reducing vehicle access, or having a shared street. So the example on the left here is Eucalyptus, as it currently exists. These other streets, you can see that vehicles are permitted, but they're designed in a way that pedestrians are clearly welcome. It's a very slow speed environment. Just some other examples here. This looks at things that are created, what's known as quick build, or they use this as pilot programs. It's something that really took a big leap forward during a lot of the COVID shutdowns, and it was something where a lot of places they were looking to provide space where people could get out and walk or bike, particularly in urban areas, and using low-cost materials, something that could be implemented quickly. And what this is also is just a great way to just test something out as a pilot. It just doesn't cost a whole lot to put down some paint, put up a couple of signs, to use planters, and then the example on the top right there looks like a more permanent installation. It was actually only in place for a few weeks in San Rafael. They put down the striping, the sign. They actually did discover some issues with it and ended up pulling it out. But sometimes just getting something on the ground and testing it can be a much easier way to go than to just do a whole lot of analysis, which may not even get you everything you need when you're trying to figure out what's going on when it gets implemented. The example on the bottom also, that's bicycle parking. You can see there's some temporary planters there, but it's also in the street. And so removing a parking space is another way of expanding that space, because the sidewalks in Avalon are so narrow, they just can't accommodate something like that. Looking at specific locations, this is the area down near the waterfront. Locations that have been talked about, those bright yellow areas. This is what was recommended in the active transportation plan, just to take those existing pedestrian-only areas, extend them up another half a block. Descanso Avenue was recommended in the general plan as a possible place for restricting through vehicle traffic. Metropole Avenue we've highlighted here as a place that could be looked at as more of a shared street option. It's an important route for vehicles, but it is something that it's wide enough that it might be a place to introduce outdoor seating, bike parking, things that could use up some of that space and make it a bit more available to all users. Micromobility, bike sharing. This is something that has been talked about previously. Most of these are electric bicycles, and I know there have been some concerns about electric bicycles that are raised, and the council has limited the number of rentals. There are some issues that certainly could be addressed. Some communities have found some ways to address things like clutter on the sidewalk. putting speed limits on them, probably some integration of education programs. The state recently passed a law that would develop a statewide safety effort. And so coordinating any kind of new micromobility e-bike share program with what's happening at the state level could really help out with those local levels. And particularly since so many people in Avalon are tourists, hopefully they would be exposed to those kinds of education programs in the mainland, and then that would carry over to their behavior on the island as well. Encouraging non-vehicle travel. This is something really focused much more on residents. Schools, there's certainly a lot of students who currently walk or bike to school, but that certainly could be quite a bit higher. Really, most of the kids do live within a half mile of the school, particularly with the improvements at the Five Corner project. Safety should be improved in that area, and the use of some kind of programmatic thing, group-led walks or bike rides are things that could help to improve the number of kids walking to school each day and reduce the number of vehicles heading out in that direction. As I mentioned before, vehicles were mentioned as really important, in particular for delivering packages. And what we're recommending as an option is something that, first of all, promoting the existing luggage storage down at the mall, and then whatever the redesigned mall looks like. And then potentially also having something more centrally located, particularly for guests who need to check out at the hotel in the morning. They want to spend the day on the island, a place where they can leave their luggage before they head out to the mall and onto the boat later on in the day. So some sort of a system to enable people to store their luggage and not necessarily rely on a vehicle to transport it from place to place. So the example here you can see on the left is a cart, is a rack on the back of a golf cart. On the right, that's actually an electric bicycle that UPS has been testing, so it's for delivery purposes. But there are some vehicle options out there that could serve this purpose, given the size of Avalon's streets and on that scale. Some of the other options that we threw into the mix here, and a lot of these were included on the list, they either because we just, they probably would not have as much of an impact in terms of mode shift, but also some are just longer term projects. So things like the first couple are certainly very good projects, things that could be really helpful and could probably be implemented one project at a time, or possibly even as part of the city's annual maintenance budget if they're small enough. Some of these others are a bit more involved. Employee commute incentives would probably require the development of something like a transportation management association, which would coordinate. There's a lot of small employers on the island, but so that each employer wouldn't have to administer programs individually. It's a much more efficient way and effective way of doing that kind of thing. A shared vehicle program would be something that would, maybe people who don't have a need for a vehicle all the time, they could just rent it on an hourly basis, and that could reduce the total number of vehicles on the island. Public transportation relates very much to what was just talked about regarding the Transportation Concepts contract, and are there some forms of mobility that could replace the current system? It seems like particularly in recent years, the system has evolved where we have the fixed route transit serving only tourists, the dial-a-ride serving only the residents. Is that really the best way to make services available? It doesn't seem like the fixed route service really serves the kind of the type of bus service that we see in other communities. There may be some sort of hybrid designs, perhaps smaller vehicles that are used for in different ways with a more flexible route. And also point-to-point transportation, so the equivalent of some type, Uber or Lyft or those kinds of alternatives that might be something someone would want for just an occasional use where they wouldn't need to have a vehicle all the time. So those just seem like they involve kind of a larger discussion, and so that was why we put them here. Not that they're any less important, but just something that might not yield the immediate results. So that kind of goes through our recommendations. I don't know if you've had a chance to review the the full report at this point, but we certainly welcome any questions or any discussion or any other points that you think need to be addressed at this time.
Okay, I know that was all a mouthful. There's a lot of information there in the report. We can take more time if we need to consider what's all in this report and you need more time to review it. That would be fine too. We can come back at another time. But otherwise, we'd like to receive at least what we have now. And if there's any preliminary recommendations, if you had a chance to dive in the report, that you would like some modifications to it, or if there's something that you really see as low-hanging fruit that we want to take on, just like we were talking the transit discussion, is what do we want? We're talking the implementation now, is that we've been from ATP to mode shift. It starts centering on a few things that keep on coming up, and transit, what is the best transit for the best transportation system for the visitors and the residents, and how do we make that happen and have it be the most efficient, not just this has been the way it's been and we built it to something that is the way it is now. It's like we have the choice to revision that, and with especially some of the funding that's coming out of the state and the federal with electrification, and could be potentially buying new vehicles here. What size of those? What routes do those go? Does it different time of the year, different time of the day? There's needs, so we need to dig into that. And so I see the transit discussion really leading into really a further study on that, so that we can, when we go for that contract, we know exactly what we need for that contractor, and that we also know what vehicles that potentially that we could provide, because we're an agency and we have the funding. We would have the funding through grants to be able to provide those. So that's one. Let's put that aside, and that's quite a task in itself. But that's low-hanging fruit, because it's right upon us, funding for the transit vehicles and also the contract. The electrification of vehicles, that really is coming upon all agencies now, and especially with what the governor has as a goal to switch over, and then that stepwise process. And city managers already suggested, when we're talking about the vehicles, the commercial vehicles, that they would first be the first ones, because they would be able to be charged maybe at the sites that they're at. And then as you move into working with Edison, and how we would build up that electrification, and in the flats and at the other employment venues, parking lots, wherever we see that, you get level 1 chargers, level 2 chargers, and there's funding for that. So you could see that that's another one that could be implemented right. The wayfinding, that's going to be happening with the MOLE project, but just the technology that's coming these days, with your phones, QR codes, everything, there's so much available to us. And we have people that our visitors are coming, and even our residents are coming over the boats, and hopefully we can get their attention, and all the way over we can get their attention to be able to do whatever they need to do and get them where they need to be. Just like Barry was saying, there's a lot of people that come over here, the day trip may be the first time, they don't even know what the transportation opportunities. We'd like them, when they get off the boat, to know that, and know maybe a direction they're heading, and to get the best enjoyable time they can out of that. Right. So that's low-hanging fruit. And then, of course, we have our ATP projects that we had mentioned when we put that out. All the ATP, but not just some of those simpler ones like crosswalks, striping, parking, which we'll be talking about, all of the things that are down by the waterfront. Those are like easy wins for us to get those things implemented. And then, of course, the delivery services from the mole project, there will be that delivery discussion we're talking about, baggage and making that really a much better product. You know, how we moved baggage from the visitors and from the venues that they're staying at, and then also the residents, to try to free them from those burdens. And hopefully what that does is they get off the boat and they walk to their house. So, and the same thing with grocery delivery. Is that something that we can investigate pretty simply, if somebody would take that on as something that an entrepreneur could be doing for Vons or for other services? So those are things right there. There's 5 of them I just mentioned that really that's reality that could happen pretty quick. And that's what I think what we'd be wanting to hear from council is, these are some of the things, that there's 3 to 5 things we'd want, and then we would be working toward putting those in the budget, saying this is how we'd like to implement these.
Mm-hmm. I'll make a couple of comments. First of all, our speed limit in town is 15 or 20. So that's the speed of bicycles, e-bikes, and regular vehicles. So to me, the rules of the road are bicycles and e-bikes follow the same rules as regular vehicles. So to me, I don't feel the need to make bike paths, because people should be stopping at stop signs, you know, using their hand signals and doing whatever. So I think that's an education and a safety thing that should come from the city, should have be noticed. You know, the rules of the road in Avalon are the same as they are on the mainland, but I think that's more education and whatever, because it's crazy how people drive their e-bikes and their bicycles. So that's something I think that law enforcement, the school, we all could maybe have a better handle on, and the people that are renting the e-bikes. In terms of the electrification, I know there was a comment, and I just wish somebody would put this to rest one way or the other with me. There are ways you can drill into the sidewalk on these homes down in the flats, and Corey knows how to do that, you know, at the house over here, you know, the house, you know, Corey and you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And put those cords underneath the sidewalk. That would accommodate many, not all, but at least some. And again, if that's not possible, I'd like to hear that it's not possible, but he says it's a couple $100 to have that drilled in there, and it's no harm, no foul. So I fortunately, and I've said it before, I can put mine up in between the houses and electrify that way. Or maybe we just say, hey, maybe you change the rule that you can't put it overhead certain hours of the day. And okay, I know that's what you're saying, but.
That's what I used to say, and Denise Ratty brought up the very good point of either clotheslining or tripping someone.
Oh, I know. Well, when we have an electric tool out, my husband puts a carpet over the cord when he's chopping wood. I'm chopping wood, you know what I mean, when he's sawing in front of the house. I mean, I think we have to come up with some answers so that people that want to do it now, and people are, the reason they're going out and buying new gas ones is because of their inability to electrify. Anyway, go ahead, Michael.
On that note, since they are mandating getting rid of selling gas-powered vehicles,
Yeah.
will that also include golf carts?
Yamaha's doing that.
One of the questions we should ask, you know.
Because if that is the case, then when they stop selling gas-powered vehicles in the state of California, I would assume golf carts would be included, and we'd be going to electric.
Well, they are, from what I understand. So somebody went and bought theirs out of state, because they're not going to be selling those Yamahas in the state of California. So now they're just buying them somewhere else. So we have to say, no, you can't buy them from out of state as well.
So, yeah, go try to buy a gas mower. It's the same thing, right? It's a gas engine, and you go into Home Depot now and everything's electric, you know.
Right.
It's already.
But I do think there's a way that we could help people cut a channel, that they could put a cord, that they could plug their electric golf cart in front of their house, still connected to their house, somehow
There's got to be
of doing that.
Yeah, I agree. So it's really, if we take that task on, that's what we do some demos. And because we want to set ourselves up for success, and it's not just the charging, but it's also the switch over of the vehicles.
Right.
And is there some incentives to be able to do that when somebody's going, well, I can get, you know, a portion of my cart, you know, reimbursed, whatever that is, through some program, then pretty soon that becomes like, well, I get a new golf cart, I get my charging, and a lot of this, it's out there right now. There are funding, there's grant funding for a lot of this, and we don't jump on the bandwagon to at least explore it at this time.
Well, if
Yeah,
you wanted
because
to, go ahead.
what you would need to charge a golf cart isn't what you would need to charge a car.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so a level 1 charger is 120 volts, a level 2 is 240, and so that, and the level 1 is very slow for an EV. We wouldn't have very many EVs, so, but, and also we don't drive very many miles. So even if you have a slow charge, it doesn't give you a full charge, you're gonna go a few miles a day, you know, and so if you, so a level 1 charger may work because those come with the EVs already in, and then a golf cart charges with 120 volts.
Yeah.
But you could have level 2 chargers somewhere around the community, just like when we do the Five Corner project, this whole frontage or this, even in our parking lots here, could all be, you know, where we could switch over. And so you could have some locations where you have level 2 chargers. So this is some of the vision of some of these things being rolled out. That's a project that put in the budget, we work on it, and then we start taking on that task.
So a level 2 charger would give you more oomph or just more?
Yes, it charges faster. It charges like double. You know, I don't have exactly everything in front of me, but it charges like double, you know,
So-
half the time.
So would a level 1 get you up to Upper
I think it
Terrace?
takes like 8 hours to
Oh, no.
charge an EV.
And the ones you're also talking, those are for full-size vehicles. is a
For
level 2.
full-size
The
electric
level 1 is
vehicles.
just all you need for the electric one.
But, so if you have 120
That's
volts
what I have.
there, you can charge a golf cart or you can charge a level 1 charger, just plugs into a 120 volts. And then, but then it's the working with Edison with their infrastructure, because even if you ran that all the way, if they didn't connect into the house, if you did public infrastructure, is how do you get the transformers down? And then, you know, that's their charge ready
Right.
program, is they're putting other infrastructure in to be able to support all of that. Otherwise you get very long links that you're trying to put low voltage,
Right.
and that doesn't always work. So, you know, it's more, Edison has to be, is a key player in the start of the discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we're all sitting here thinking, okay, electrification is the way we want to start to go, then those discussions, if they haven't started happening, need to start happening. Because
Yeah.
without them on board, we're kind of dead in the water, other than me charging mine at home.
Yeah, and so then you'll look for the low-hanging fruit, just like the commercial ones, and then as we roll out some other projects, you could put chargers on, and then.
But again, if I can do it out of my house, that is a low-hanging fruit.
Correct.
If I can
As
drill a
long
hole
as-
through the sidewalk, that's a
Yeah,
low-hanging fruit.
not to get too much of the details, but as long as we're successful, that we don't get unintended consequences from that, like hanging wires, or somebody has to react to somebody that doesn't get it, you know, that, and I think there will be folks out there that just say, oh, I forgot about it, or no, that person does it, I don't know how to do it, and, you know, so I want something to be as foolproof as much as possible. That's what I would suggest to you, so
And
that
I'm-
we're successful.
Okay, and I'm being redundant as hell. But I don't know if we could, 2 people with electric carts like mine and Judy Greer's up the street, why couldn't we try that project where we drill through the?
So let's do a
through the
demo.
cement?
Yes,
Huh?
we can do a demo.
And that would
Yeah.
be very inexpensive, and just to see how it works. And then we could move on from there, because I'm a little concerned, and it's gonna be further down the line. Somebody saying, oh, let's say we had electrification station right here somewhere around City Hall where we've got all that cactus and stuff.
Yes.
Okay, who's gonna drop it off and then say, okay, and then I'll come and I'm gonna walk and then pick it up in the morning? I've talked to some people and they're like, no, they're so used to convenience that it's not like we're on the mainland. It's a tougher egg to crack.
I think that your solution for through the concrete or underneath or a channel is a very short-term solution, and it's very personal. It's something that's gonna be from your house to your personal vehicle.
Right.
So it also assumes that you're literally getting to park in front of your house all the time.
No.
No?
Not necessarily, only when you need to
Necessarily,
charge.
no. It
How long
takes
of a
me
cart are you having?
it takes me 2 hours to charge my golf cart.
The thing is that it doesn't take long to actually charge them.
And you don't let
Yeah,
it
the
go
electric
all
golf
the way
carts.
to dead either.
And so the other part of that question, not to poo-poo that, but it's a good solution for a short term, is looking at the greatest service. So looking at a solution that actually does an entire street, looking at whether or not we look at some of these recommendations of allowing permit only on certain streets potentially.
Right,
Which was one of
right.
those
Oh,
suggestions,
right,
right?
right.
So if that's the case, then you have the permit to be able to park there, and maybe you have a code that you enter into a charging station. Originally, the issue was we were only finding stations that were stanchions, right? So
Right.
you can't add a stanchion to the sidewalk that's already that small.
Right.
There were some that Jim pointed out to us from Europe that are now going into the ground that are literally just a flat charging station. So you have the ability to do multiple charging rays, types of vehicles into that same station, and it's the entire block that gets electrified then at that
Right,
point.
yeah.
Huge infrastructure project,
Yeah.
huge Edison project, and something that could be potentially beneficial if it could be a program that could also benefit either the city and or Edison in making money for that you're actually actively charging for that use, which is how people would do it.
Mhm.
So normally if you're in a spot like that, you're charging and you're getting charged for that usage. And then saying, great, once you're done with your charging, if you're still there, you're getting either fined for time that you're there after charge, or there's
Yeah.
some mechanism for that, so.
Yeah. Be nice if we could make code not have to do another job.
Which would be really nice. The other part of that I know, the chief and I have discussed previously is just looking at the overall safety of electric vehicles and how calls for electric vehicle fires would be managed here on the island. Just because the potential for a longer burning fire that requires a longer response is huge. So, that's the other part of that.
Yeah, well, and that, yeah, and do we really want to go, be in the year 20 whatever? Do we want to say we're all electric? I don't know, because what else is going to come up in the meantime?
Right,
And what
20
about hydrogen and, you know, and,
I think we need to look at all options right now.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be saying no to any option, but if it's gonna become more and more challenging, and also if the goal ultimately is to have cleaner burning energy and or cleaner cars, then that's what we are working
Right,
towards,
right.
so.
well, one of the other things that are on there, and I've chatted about it before, is, and maybe we need money to do that, but to put some kind of a sunset on some of those older 1980
we should.
golf carts. We need to start doing that, and okay, but then here we go, we do that, but then okay, but I want an electric one, well, okay, but we don't have any way for you to charge it. So I guess that's for you all to figure out.
That would be part of that electrification of vehicles, the whole program, how to do, you gotta have the infrastructure, and you gotta have the vehicles.
Yeah.
And so you have somebody working on the grants, you got somebody working on the infrastructure. But realize that there's funding out there, and we have, grant writers, there's funding out there. We have other projects that this could interface with to get some early wins. So on the Five Corner project, you're gonna have a whole frontage down Tremont here on this side towards City Hall that you can electrify that, and you can, even if they were on posts, you could do that. So that's right there for everybody in the flats to use if they don't, they need to. And also the parking lot, they do need to have out of there by the morning so city employees could be there. But every parking lot around here could potentially have that too, because we're gonna build a new parking lot with that project right there where that planter is in the back here, which has, 18 spaces. So right there, that with this project, next year, you're gonna have that delivered. And so those are all, exciting things that we can bring on electrification just for the flats area here.
Yeah.
And I think we were in discussion already with Edison, because they have a program for that, so.
Yeah,
looking
charge
at
rate.
having some of those put in even by Edison and project managed by Edison for that, which would be great, so.
And when you're talking about commercial vehicles and electrifications, we're talking about other businesses, not just us?
We're talking
Yes.
about other
Yeah.
businesses, Dave can.
And the reason that's attractive is, right, because they already have to have the off-street parking to have the commercial sticker to begin with. So we know that we don't run into the infrastructure problem.
Right. But And is that something that we might have to mandate? Because they say, well, we just bought a new blah, 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 and now we're saying by a certain year you have to electrify? Is that what we would do?
We're doing that going forward, that
Okay.
new commercial vehicles, we are steering them that way now.
Excellent, excellent, okay.
And just even the grant programs we've investigated for the city, you know, there is right on the very near horizon, substantial grant funding to replace some of the vehicles we have. So, and they're starting to become, you know, tried technology, you know, that we can trust putting out there. So you should see some of that roll within the next few years here.
I think the wayfinding signage is something we can jump on right away.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that if we can actually look, for Matt making notes on the next budget, if we can look and see what we can actually put into it for the next budget, that I think we can start building stuff even without the mole project progressing yet, can still start building that stuff as it is now, and then be able just to really implement it hugely at the mole. I also, the next page of that report has a transportation information and marketing. I think the time on the boat and even the time in the terminals, at the helicopter and even up at the airport, there's some time there where we can literally create a short video, have that produced to provide information, and make it something that plays before the captain does his announcement. So you're 10 minutes out and you're waiting for something or you're whatever, you get a 3-minute video on here's all the options you guys have to have this stuff.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Or they could put it on a loop, you know, because you're sitting there on the boat and, you know, just watch it over and over and over again or whatever.
Or they can put it into the confirmation emails of, I mean, if we want to go that far, they can add a link for it, they can make it a reminder, they can do all sorts of stuff, so.
True.
So there's a few things there we can do. It also can be geolocated if you really want to go that way of what they get airdropped when they get off the boat and get into town. I don't know that we want to hit everyone with that, but it's a possibility.
That's exciting stuff, all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the idea of unbundling the vacation rentals too. But the first thing that popped into my head was, oh my God, there's gonna be Vons carts all over the place.
And they already are.
Right. So it's like, how would you, but, so that could go hand in hand with beefing up our delivery service.
Delivery,
you know,
yeah.
because Vons over town, you know, you can order delivery anywhere. So if Vons doesn't want to do it themselves, then you're right, an entrepreneur out there that's listening can work with Vons to get a delivery service going. I mean, I think that would be a great idea.
And I actually had a guest this last weekend who wasn't feeling well and didn't want to go out, and was shocked to find out that Vons doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
She was
Right.
and because granted it was just around the corner, but she was like, you know, on the mainland, you have somebody who could deliver.
Right.
It's like,
But just knowing Vons and how short-handed they are all
Right.
the time, I'm sure they would not want to spare somebody to go deliver vehicles. So again, if somebody's listening.
But
So an entrepreneur-
Does that reduce the number of vehicles on the street, though?
So an
Unless they have a
entrepreneur,
vehicle big enough to deliver.
Well, yeah, it would help with the unbundling of the golf carts with a vacation rental. So that would enhance
That's the
people
reason.
walking and stuff. But that would be a way for them to get their groceries. Because that would keep the Vons carts at Vons,
Right,
hopefully,
right,
except the divers always take them. Sorry, divers, but it's true.
so a micro vehicle that looks fun, that advertises that and drives around, and somebody would see it, and that it adds to the unique culture of Avalon.
Right.
That you know, it's like, oh, what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
that's our delivery vehicle that you can get your groceries.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
vacation rentals will have
Yeah.
a concierge service like that, that'll do that. The one thing I do want to say on that, because we tried the delivery service personally as a business in the harbor, is that we then got dinged on the actual product we were delivering, even though it was from a separate business, and got charged 7% on the food product amount, so that was not feasible for us to continue with that. So if someone was to do that, I would just ask that we look at that and
What?
maybe
I'm
the
lost.
they called the sale of the food product part of the gross receipts. So then we got charged on the 7% for the food that came from a restaurant we were delivering, even though it was two totally separate businesses,
Gotcha.
separate business licenses. So just making sure that if someone does that, that we look at that and see if that's something that needs to be a thing, or if it's not included because it's not in the harbor, it's on land and there's no
Right.
admissions tax for it, so it may not be a thing, but yeah.
Okay, so what are you coming away with, sir?
Electrification.
So how can we
Wayfinding.
name 1, 2, 3? That would be the top 3 here.
Yeah.
And you can always add more as we get into the budget, but 3 that we want to focus on.
You tell us, what did you go there
Well,
from
I
this?
mean, right now we're working on transit.
Right.
And we're on vehicles, and through this whole study, it says you may want to do something different, you know, and to be able to serve efficiently the visitors and the residents. And that may be some type of different configuration, you know. We're going to be putting an RFP out. We're buying vehicles, you know, it just seems to make sense. And there's money for electrification of the vehicles. And then the second, the electrification of the vehicles that we've been talking about, and that goes hand in hand with our permitting, with getting down there to the 100 block and maybe changing some of the parking and all the other things that we're doing. And then as we're building these other projects, we're building the Mole project, and we're building Five Corner project, and we've had funding for that now, all those, and those things can all be integrated with some of these things, you know, delivering those. And then the wayfinding, you know, the wayfinding seems, that's also part of the Mole project, and then also that education piece that we were talking about. If we can.
But like Lisa said, I don't think we need to wait on the Mole project for the wayfinding. I think it needs to be implemented rapidly, because someone just, I got an email from somebody, and their comment was, they said that they would have gone there, but they didn't know, there was no directions on how to get there. So it really is pretty stark, you know, coming from the Mole and stuff, and if we wanted to start, you know, we could get some sort of a centralized sign, real easy. Claudia could make one probably, sign crafters. Hi, Claudia. You know, out there, you know, with just like a map or something like that. And then another spot that might be really good is kind of over there by the photo booth area. You know, so it's like, okay, they got off the boat, they walked this far, and so now it's like, okay, it's here, 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 here. Just a couple little things to quickly point people in the right direction, and then they can be, you know, spruced up or you know, more ideas, you know. But I think sooner than later for some better wayfinding signage.
So, and part of that wayfinding is technology. Yeah. Everybody has the cell phone, and they won't keep their eyes. And how do you get the QR codes, and how do you, and the chamber sounds like they're all in on that, you know.
Well, as the chamber pointed out, though, at the marketing conference that we went to, is that, you know, most of the people that spend money here are older people, and a lot of older people are not that savvy to QR codes and all that stuff. I mean, you know, so you have to remember, there is a large segment of the population that's really not hip to the technology. And a lot of those people do come here. So we have to satisfy both, is all I'm saying.
Yes, there has to be redundancy.
Yeah.
Let me just bring up something that's really not, well, it's here, something that is a real bother to me. I think the ugliest part of our transportation and pedestrian and bicycles is in between Clarissa and the boat, and right there, in the golf cart rental place, and
So you're talking the elbow?
yes, and I don't.
And then that's an ATP priority project, and that'd be the next one we want.
Okay, but I guess I'm also wondering, what can we do in the interim before we do something? That is a cluster.
So that we should put that project in the budget, move it on into the preliminary study and demo phase, so you can get some wins on that project, because we already have a sketch of that. Now, we need to have the community discussion on what components we want in there, and then start rolling some of those out. Temporary, you know, just like we did here with the little roundabouts, and we painted some things, put some things up, and see how they work and how people react to them.
Right.
And then we can start designing, and that could be multiple phases where you go, just in this reach, we can pour a curb, we put planters, whatever it is, and it makes it so that, you know, incrementally, you're making it better year by year.
Because once the people get past Clarissa and Caressa, they're either walking this way, or they're going that way, and they're going that way, or they're turning down Third. But that is a cluster that needs to be dealt with real soon, because it's a disaster now. And there needs to be some form of,
Yeah.
I don't know if we need,
So the mole will come
people that-
all the way.
I have comments.
Yeah, okay.
The elbow sucks.
yeah.
I don't understand why the wall doesn't go all the way around. Because you have all these people coming off into an open area to cross the street where there's no crosswalks, traffic is trying to get by, and they're in the middle of the street. Why the wall there doesn't continue on around?
Yeah, the serpentine wall?
At the yeah.
Yeah.
Why it doesn't go all the way around?
Yeah.
Sorry, Megan. Why there are 3 parking spaces right there when there doesn't need to be parking spaces right there?
But this is trying to get people to walk.
So you look, when you come around, when you come off of Clarissa and onto Pebbly right there, and you look up, there's a palm tree that, it's just one little single tall palm tree, really, really small, that could go away, and that could all the parking right there could go away, and that could all be sidewalk. You could make the sidewalk more walkable, more feasible.
Yes.
But my big thing is that the serpentine wall doesn't go all the way around.
Yeah,
So
I
then you
agree.
just have people flooding across, it just,
Well, so they drop off at the.
well, my thing is that we could,
basketball, they start dropping off at the basketball because they go to the golf cart place or they walk, and then now they're walking on Pebbly Beach. They're not walking in the walkway by the water. And that's where then it just starts and it blooms into that mess.
Yeah, and so that's why you have a few designated crossings, and then you try to restrict some other crossings, and so that there's, and you improve those crossings so they're well seen, well lighted, and you have expectations as a driver, that's where you would cross. And the barriers don't need to be ugly, they can be landscaping, they can be artistic type rails or whatever that, but then as you come in the elbow there, that whole area where we do have the circle with the palm tree, that the design right now, the preliminary design had a curb that aligned with the other curb across the street. So it was a road diet. So you only had enough for the vehicles to go in the 2 directions. Everything else was pedestrian.
Yeah.
Then so you can imagine that whole area being another plaza right there as they're waiting for the golf carts or going to their tours at the Conservancy.
Right.
And it's other space for other public. So, because people want to walk in that curve.
right, that's the big thing, is
And
that
so
it-
you gotta, yeah.
So maybe we put a signal on both sides, and then
No.
so the vehicles could stop and people could cross legally.
Yeah.
Well, we could
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
make
I
some
know.
funny signage, like this is a street.
It's something that is
Yeah.
absolutely terrible, and I don't know if, again, we need a crossing guard there, what we need. But that, in that morning, and when those cruise ship people come off and other people get off the other boats, that's when it's a cluster. And I hate to say anything about the sheriffs, but having that vehicle there does not do any good to keep people from walking in the streets or anything like that. We need a body.
So if
until
we
it's
make the
fixed.
correct improvements and guide people where they need to go and do it, if we're successful, you won't need a crossing guard, you won't need a signal. They
Okay.
will figure it out because it's so organic, so natural. That's what a complete street is it just,
And I had this discussion with Dave. There was a period of time when someone had ran into the wall, serpentine wall,
Oh, yeah.
that enabled us to open up the
Yes.
serpentine wall to have a crosswalk right there. Because if you have people walking down Clarissa on this side of the street, they get to that corner and then they have to walk down in front of Pancake Cottage, which a sidewalk is only this big, and then try to get across that big mess to get back over to get on the side of the boat.
Right.
I would rather see that chunk of that wall go away if we have to move it all back to that so that the crosswalk is there.
I hated that crosswalk there. It just created more of a cluster. Because
So-
you had people going here and going here and going here. I mean, it was ridiculous.
So it sounds like we got a lot of details, so that could be,
Right.
I'm getting cued from Dave here. It's like,
Well, and then talk to the sheriffs, because they are the safety guys, they know that kind of stuff too, but, okay. I'm sorry I brought that one up, but boy, that's a big one.
No, that area is a mess.
It's our biggest problem.
Especially on cruise ship day.
It is. It's
You went-
horrible.
If you try to go to the boat, it's,
Yeah.
that vehicles line up because people on the cruise ship don't understand that it's not Disneyland and that there are traffic laws, that they just continue to walk across the street and you can't make that turn.
And then you got cars passing other cars because they're
Because
impatient.
they're impatient.
Bob, why don't we make that our fourth then?
so that sounds like
priority?
a fourth, and so that's consistent with the ATP recommendations,
thank you.
consistent with this. And it's, it's consistent with some of the pedestrian improvements we want, so.
Yeah.
I think that helps move us on tonight.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And more of it's coming to you. It's like, this is not the end of this. It's,
Okay.
it just keeps on happening, okay?
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so report received, and
And filed.
then we'll finish up that and put all the appendices in there, and we'll take those recommendations and start moving those toward budget, okay?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you
Thank you, Barry.
to the presenter.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
Barry.
your time.
Oh, thanks, Barry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8.
Okay, our last item, number 8, is discussion and in-person teleconference meeting options under the Brown Act and Assembly Bill 361 and 2449. Mr. Campbell, if he's still with us.
Yeah, the main issue here is to get the council's direction on whether you want to still take advantage of AB 361. I will note that many cities, because the state of emergency is over at the end of this month, have elected not to utilize 361 anymore. There is the actual law says that if there's a state of emergency, or if state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures for social distancing, you can continue to make the findings. Both Cal OSHA and the County of Los Angeles are continuing to promote social distancing, so you can continue to meet this way. The difference is if you continue to make the findings every 30 days under AB 361, you do not have to post at every location that a council member is attending the meeting from. If you stop making the findings, if a council member wanted to attend remotely, they would have to post at the location where they are calling in from. The exception to that is under what's called AB 244. If you decide not to make these findings, you can meet remotely and not post the location if you show good cause. The good cause are listed in the staff report. You can do that twice a year. And for emergency circumstances, which are also defined in the staff report, you don't have to post at each location. So your decision tonight will guide how we go forward at the March meeting, because you could make the findings at March. You can continue to make the findings under 361 until the end of this year, until the end of 2003. After 2003, this option goes away. So I just wanted to bring this up to you for your direction on how you want to meet.
I think we should keep going with it. I mean, just because, your son is calling in tonight, and she often has sitter problems, so, and we don't want her to necessarily have to disclose her location.
Yes, thank you.
And I appreciated being able to help family and be still able to attend as well last time, so.
Yeah.
I feel like we should go forward with 361 through the end of the year.
Yeah.
And since LA County is right now, and then look at 2449 if we need to at the close of the year.
Just as long as he can read the abbreviated version every month.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion?
No,
Okay.
you don't. I'll just have it on the next agenda. The findings will be a little different because the state of emergency, the state of emergency will be over by then. And you can continue to meet under 361 toward the end of the year as long as either the county or Cal OSHA has some social distancing requirements, which they both have right now. So the only reason you'd not be able to do that if Cal OSHA or the county just says there's no requirements for masking, no requirements for 6 feet separation if you have COVID. And we don't think that that'll happen, but I just wanted to tell you that there is a small possibility.
Right, okay.
Okay.
And are you okay with that, CM? Mr. Maestro?
I am. I just want to clarify, Scott, that the reason for doing it and continuing it is because of social distancing, right? I mean, it's not
That's
convenience.
correct. That is correct.
We have to be careful that it's not for convenience reasons as compared to social distancing reasons.
Right,
And
right,
and
right. You're still gonna
that's
have
my only
to-
thing is that it
Again,
isn't
if
convenience,
you
it's,
post-
yeah. When the federal government calls an end to the emergency, does that affect us in any way?
No, it does not, because the statute provides that it's either a state of emergency, which is the state of emergency, or state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures for social distancing. So because there are measures that are recommended for social distancing, you can continue to make those findings. And the reason you're making the findings is because if you don't, and let's say Yesenia wanted to attend the meeting at home, she'd have to post it and let members of the public come into the home if they wanted to. She couldn't keep them out. This way, she does not have to post, or none of you have to post the
Right.
location, and let people into the place where you're calling from.
Is there something about 4 days in which to do it? You gotta let them know 4 days before? What was
No,
that?
that is if you don't do the social distancing, if you don't take the benefit of 361, then you can post, then you can meet without posting twice a year. Each council person can use it twice a year, but you have to let us know what the good cause is, 4 days in advance. And then if there's an emergency, you can actually do it at the meeting.
Yeah.
And for good cause, and if it's an emergency, it's interesting that the council actually votes on it as to determine whether it's a really emergency or not.
Yeah, okay.
Which is it's an interesting statute.
All righty. Well, if there's no further action, the meeting is adjourned, and good night, Tony.
Thank you.